Hello everyone. Now in this session we will know about the next concept, that means the server system architecture. And previously we know the concept about the centralized or the client server. Now the server system architecture contains a three type, that means the transaction server, data server and cloud based server. Now the server system architecture, that one is simply the server system can be broadly categorized with the transaction server and data server. Now the transaction server, that one is simply the we can say that when we access the data from the database with the help of the queries, like we write the queries with the help of SQL language and we send a request to the database, and database get that particular query output and show it to the user. That one is, we can say that that is a transaction server, or we can say that structural database. When we use structural database, definitely that is run on a transaction server. Now the data server system, we can say that file server or file server provides a file system interface where client can create, update, read and delete the file. That one is simply the, we can say that file server or the data server. These are the two main server, transaction and data server. Now we will know about in detail about transaction server, how exactly it works. We already know about the query processing, we already know about the SQL, or it may be how exact that query related to SQL is processed and how the data is get from the database and show to the user. And then it run with the concurrency control, then serializability, recovery methods, all the comes under the transaction servers. Now we will go with directly this diagram. This one is simply the user process, or user process means we can say that some of the user send a request to the particular database for the particular data. Now the it's connect with the server with the ODBC or JDBC. Now the it comes under the shared memory. Shared memory contains a buffer pool. It contains a memory which one is contain all the request. Now the query plan cache is if this user send some query and which one is already under this cache, then it again reply faster. As to improve the speed, it used the query plan cache. Now the next, that one is a log buffer. Log contains simply the transaction log, and that contains about the checkpoint process. Means we already know about the checkpoints. We apply the checkpoints for recovery, that contains under the log buffer. Then log write process, that one is we maintain the log files, that the simply the log file which one is maintained with the help of checkpoint processes. After the particular in a particular time, we just to take a backup of a log file with the help of checkpoints. That one is managed with the log buffer. Now the log table, which one is maintain the detail about the log on a particular data, that contains or the different type of logging systems under the log table. Now the all the process log manager process, which one is manage the log table. Then process monitor process, which one is one process monitor the another process, that one is a program. Now the database write process, that one is simply the buffer pool, which one is send us some request to get the data or to write the data. That one is done with the database write process, and the particular this process write the data under the database. Shared, this one is simply the shared memory and process structure, and that one is a transaction structure, we can say that transaction server. Now the server process, then log manager process, data write process, log write process, checkpoint process, process monitor process, and these are the points under the transaction server. Now we will know about in the next type, that one is a data server, means a file server, we can say that. Normally data server system are used in a local area network. That means this type of a data server is used under the LAN. There is a high speed connection between the client and server. In this scenario we use the data server. Now the some issues under this data server, so we will know about the things everyone knows about the data server, under which one is we used under the LAN. Everyone know about the LAN means local area network. It's come with one server and other clients, and then we store the data on a particular server. That one is simply the files on a database, files on a particular server. Now some issues arise in such architecture. We will go with some problems. We will discuss some problem under the data server. That one is page shipping versus item shipping. Data servers, that one is used in a LAN. The issues related to that, page shipping versus item shipping means what? Means when we access the data from the database, that one is either a page is whole page is accessed from the database, or it may be some value, some item of the data is accessed. This one is the two thing, as compared to the page shipping, or it may be access the data with the paging, or it may be access the data with the item, specific item. Then what will the scenario? What will be the scenario? If unit is single item, overhead of a message passing compared to the data passing, means if we access the particular data with the item data, then definitely when we send a request to the server for a particular item, then it's allowed to the particular client to access it, and that message passing is higher than as compared to the data size. That is the problem under the item shipping, if we access the item wise data from the database or from the server. Now page shipping, if multiple item page shipping done, but when single item pages, then whole, if we run with the page fetching, if under the particular page contain the 3, 4, or it may be a 10 item, we want to access the third one item, then we access the whole page, right? That one is again a problematic. The whole page is fetched, and we want to only use a single item. But if we want to access the 6 to 7 item, which one is comes under the same page, that one is more efficient, right? That is simply the comparison between the page shipping and the item shipping under the data server. Now the adaptive lock granularity, when we apply the lock on a particular data item, lock granted by a server, but client request one item whole page is locked, so the other item unnecessary locked. Adaptive locking means, for example, if this particular client 1 access the page 1, right, from the server, it will apply the lock on whole page, right? That one is again the blocking stage for the another client for the particular item, right? That one is adaptive lock granularity. We already know about the granularity, means it's a performance about to accessing or the particular task. Now the data caching, existing cache at client, then client reuse it to lock them, but some other transaction may update the data. The scenario says that when we access the data, our C1 access a data, that one is considered D1, right? It apply the lock or cache it under the client, and client 2 also want to access the same data. It may be this C1, or it may be a C2 change the D1, right? D1, then it may be a C1 use the local copy of D1. It's again the problematic. That is the data caching under the client. Now the solution, that one is a lock caching. When we access a particular item, it apply the lock on that, like log the data, and then C1 send a request to the server, then it apply the lock on a particular data D1. When C2 access D1, want to access the D1, it send a conflict the lock because of C1 already locked the D1. That one is again the, but any client fails, then it problematic. Conflicting lock, but any client fails, then it problematic. If this client fails, then the C2 can apply the request to the data 1, and it may be the problematic after recovering this C1. That is simply some issues related to the data server. Now the third type of a data server server architecture, that one is a client-based server, cloud-based server. Everyone knows what is a cloud. Normally we stored our data on a particular cloud server service provider, and then we access that data with something other service or the other service provider. Like we stored, for example, we stored our data on a Gmail, and we access with the Gmail account or browser from the browser. That browser is made by the some other organization. That one is simply the cloud-based server process. These are the three processes or three types of the particular server system architecture, and that is a part of the introduction of a database architecture. In a previous session, we already know about the centralized architecture, client server architecture, then again the transaction server architecture, data server architecture, cloud based architecture. Definitely these three is classified with these two, right? Simple. That one is the introduction about to the database architecture. Now in next lecture we will know about the case or the multiple user database architecture. Thank you.